Today, we become legends.
Hey, my name's Inter, and welcome back to the channel for the full Open Beta 8 update notes. Of course, we do know a lot about what is coming in this patch already from the Titan Talk on Monday, but we've got full notes here with quite a bit of additional stuff that hasn't really been talked about yet, like VXG emotes, God balance. There's a bunch of extra stuff in these update notes that we haven't really talked about yet, so I figured I would cover the full update notes as well. We'll go over most of the stuff that we already know about from previous Titan Talks and stuff a bit quicker, but then there's also, as I said, quite a lot of other stuff that we didn't know about until these update notes. Of course, as always, this patch will be launching on Monday, so you can jump into the action then. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the notes. So, of course, Kali is going to be the new god in this update. We've got the card art here for her with the additional stuff like the skulls, the tongue, the red eyes, that kind of stuff. She's also got no shoes on anymore, none of the high heels. She's barefoot in Smite 2, so a few model changes for Kali. And in terms of gameplay, she is going to be split scaling. She has some intelligence scaling within her kit, potentially for like a more ability-based burst kind of build with the intelligence, and then obviously traditional strength, attack speed, Kali as she would have been in Smite 1. Her main +1 changes these rupture stacks. Your 1 will apply 3 stacks of it, your 2 will apply 3 stacks if you hit all 3 blades, and then you also get them every time you basic attack. And once you reach 5 stacks of rupture, your 3 will consume them to deal bonus damage and heal you. That is like Kali's main +1. One thing they also did coming into Smite 2 is that the ability to change your target by jumping on them with your 1 is gone in Smite 2. That was the thing that was added to her in late Smite 1. They removed that. But yeah, other than that, that is pretty much all of these changes going to Kali. As I've said, I've covered Kali already in previous videos earlier this week. I will link down below my full Kali ability overview if you haven't seen her yet. In terms of new skins, we have covered these as well, but this is Carnival Kiss Pele, the full card art, which looks really nice in my opinion. This is going to be one of the brand new skins coming in this update. I think actually the only brand new skin coming in this update. We've also got Voidworm, Kukulkan, and Duke Dandelion's and her. They will be coming as classic skins, 100% legacy gems. Voidworm is also going to have prisms. Carnival Kiss, the Pele skin, will also have prisms as well. And then Cosmic Conjurer Merlin is coming as a cross-gen skin, and then in terms of cosmetics, there's like a little bundle as well in the chest that the Pele skin is going to be in. Obviously, the Pele skin is also a direct purchase. That's how every skin works in Smite 2. You can get it cheaper in a chest, or you can buy it direct purchase. But yeah, within that chest is also this cosmetic bundle, kind of clown theme. Quips are going to be coming as well. This is going to be a supporter store thing. It looks like they haven't mentioned anything about pricing, but on the Titan Talks, Kilgoon said it will be cheaper than the name colors. And basically, these are like kind of like your special emotes, but they're sounds instead. So you got like the ay from the Changa skin. You've got like fart sounds, horns, sad party. Basically, they're just ability to play sounds. So this is going to be in the support store. God Builder is going to be coming in this update as well, which again, I've gone over in more detail previously, but God Builder is going to be coming. It's going to have significantly more features than Smite 1's God Builder had. You can see it here in game. This is going to be on the God page. So you just go to the God Builder. You can create your own builds, and they will appear in like a section on the left like this. And you can also go to community builds and see, you know, here's Weaken's build, here's high-risk caps locks build, and so on. And then you can bring those up. They will appear in your store if you select it as the build you want to use. They will appear at the store in game, and you can just build them like you would have done with Smite 1's God Builder. It's going to be a really good system, in my opinion. Going to be super helpful for new players, or even you know, slightly inexperienced players, or people who just don't want to worry about having to you know, create a custom build every game. The minimum requirements for these builds is going to be a final build and a starting build. So as you can see here, you can also include leveling orders as well. But then you're also going to be able to add additional tabs. I'm not sure if they'll show it at any point here. It looks like they don't, but you can also add additional tabs that will appear like below this final build and starting item with like, you know, counter build items, and you can add short and long descriptions to say, you know, build this item in this situation. And you can even just include general like god advice in those if you want to. You can put whatever you want in the headers, so you could just create a header with like a little section on like how to play the god at a basic level. So you can do a lot of different stuff with this. It's going to be, you know, a little bit bare bones on its initial implementation. It has all the core functionality, but it's not going to be like tied into auto build until OB8, I believe they said. But yeah, it's got all the core functionality that you need. You can see how it affects your stats as well on the right-hand side panel. And yeah, this is going to be super helpful to new players. I'm going to be trying to create some builds myself, you know, put some in there just to help out the community. I'm sure, like, you know, Weekend maybe he'll port all of his builds from Smite source directly into game. It's just going to be super helpful for newer and more inexperienced players, or people that just don't want to mess around with the build system and they just want a build that will work. A lot of people have been asking this a very long time, and it's going to be coming in this update, which is super exciting. And yeah, this is it in match as well. You'll have a little god builder tab that you can go to. You can also select a build from this as well. So when you're already in game, if you haven't selected a build yet for that god, you can actually go to this god builder tab, and then you can actually, it shows down here, you can go to community builds and just find one, which is really handy as well. You know, if you're playing a soul or whatever, or maybe you just, you know, you picked a god that you are a little bit inexperienced with, you don't have a build yet, you can actually just find one directly in game while you're in the fountain, which is really cool. But yeah, moving on from god builder, it's also going to be VXG support in this update, which is something they did not mention in the patch notes. Oh, not in the patch notes. They obviously have mentioned it in the patch notes, so they didn't mention it on the Titan Talks earlier this week. We're going to be getting VXGs, which is really cool. So all of the skins that have VXG emotes, like for example, Thanatos turning into a giant piece of toast, and for example, Heaven's Rave, Zeus, and Base Cannon Neath being able to play the music, they will sync up their music like they did in Smite 1. So yeah, we've got VXG support in the game now, so I imagine any other like classic skins that are ported will have their VXGs ported as well, which is really cool. You know, it's a nice little extra feature that some of these skins have that is pretty sick. Moving into some game mode changes though, first up we have the Firebrands, which are going to be a new Conquest objective. They're going to spawn in the Fire Giant pit at 3 minutes, and they will despawn at 15 minutes when Fire Giant spawns. And basically these are two little dudes. They're pretty tanky. You're probably going to want 2 people at least to kill them, maybe 3, you know, maybe like the solo and jungle does them, or the solo, jungle, and mid does them, or the jungle and mid does them, or whatever. You're probably not going to want to solo these because they're very tanky and it'll take you a long time, but you're probably going to want a few people to do them, and they will drop the Fire Giant bricks, 2 of them each, so you'll get 4 total of the Fire Giant bricks for 8 of each stat permanently. So just a little extra something that you can get basically to bring the soul later into the game a little bit, and just something extra to do on that side of the map. Okay, I said 2, they've actually reduced the amount that these give. It's now going to be 1 strength and intelligence per brick. It might have been a little bit too ridiculous on the flash test or something. Totem of Ku is also getting a small rework, so they've actually disabled the minion effect on the totem. It's no longer going to do any kind of like minion buffing. It's still going to give the MP5 to your tower and stuff like that. It's still going to do that, but the minion buffing effect specifically has been replaced with a stacking cooldown rate buff. This is only going to be for the player that captures it. It's not going to be for their entire team, but you're going to get 1 permanent cooldown rate, which again has been nerfed down from 2 permanent cooldown rate that they initially showed on the Titan Talk. So if you've watched those, it's going down to +1 cooldown rate, which I think does make sense. Jungle timer updates. I don't think they've talked about this. So Smite 1 players will recognize how this feature works. For new players joining us in Smite 2, here's a breakdown of how the new timers work. Jungle timers will have 2 states. If an enemy did not witness the camp being cleared, they will have no knowledge of when a camp will spawn. This means that the enemy will see an empty camp on the minimap with no respawn timer, and if they did witness it being killed, they will see the timer as normal. So this is good. This is Smite 1 piracy. A quick wind sprite update. They have reduced the number of wind sprites throughout the map. This was something they said they were going to do a little while back as well, like maybe a week ago or something like that, or a few days ago. They made the change where you can follow people for about 2 seconds after they use a wind sprite, so you can't just like use them as a get out of jail free card. The enemy can follow you. They've now also reduced the number of wind sprites throughout the map. Hopefully some have been removed from in lanes. I really don't think they belong in lanes whatsoever, so that will be good. Minion versus minion TTK. Minions now clear each other slightly slower than normal, about 10 hits instead of, or about 15 hits instead of 10, so about 50% slower in terms of just minions killing each other. They've removed the anti-magic shield from brute minions as well, which I guess makes sense. You know, they are incredibly tanky on their own, the brute minions. They would just be ridiculous to kill as a magical damage dealer. Gold Fury update. The leadership aura, they have reduced the damage reduction grind to minions from 30% to 15% and reduced the power from 25 to 15. So those buffs where, like, if you have that certain Gold Fury, I can't remember which one it is, but if you have that and you're nearby those minions, it's just going to be your minions are a little bit less powerful. Titan update as well. They have increased the amount of stats the Titan gains from tier 2 towers substantially. They have doubled the health, doubled the power, increased the protections as well. And yeah, I think it makes sense. Titans are a bit of a pushover in Smite 2 at the moment. You know, even if they have a couple of standing tier 2s and all you do is take like mid Phoenix and they have like 2 Phoenixes and 2 tier 2s up, like it's still pretty easy to kill. Team gold rewards, they mentioned this a little bit, but no specifics. So if your team is behind in the team gold on the scoreboard, all structures and neutral bosses will award bonus gold up to plus 65% of the value. How much bonus gold your team gets depends on how far behind your team is, up to a maximum of 8k behind, so you'll get the full 65% bonus at that point. And the mapping is exponential, so yeah, you're going to get significantly more if you're close to this 8,000 gold. If you're only down like 2,000 gold or something, it's not going to be giving you, you know, like 15% or whatever. It might only be giving you like 5%. It's exponential. First Blood, they have reverted the change they made in the OB6 update. It now grants 200 gold instead of 75. I think this makes sense. I was never a big fan of this change, and recently on the Titan Talk, they said it didn't really make any difference at all when they made this change. Nobody really liked it, and it didn't make any difference to the stats in terms of like the team with First Blood winning. So yeah, it makes sense. Assault meditation can now be sold. That's just a nice quality of life change. You know, if you're playing Mulan or whatever, you might want to sell your meditation. I guess not Mulan, because you can kind of put down the matter. But like if you're playing Vulcan or whatever and you have the Thumper in your consumable slot, you might want to sell meditation so you can still pick up like obsidian daggers and whatnot. Moving into God Balance though, which is something we haven't seen at all for this update. They went over the big item changes that they were doing. There is some additional item balance in the notes as well, I think, but God Balance they haven't shown anything off at all. So Cupid nerf for the aspect of love specifically. The one, they have decreased the initial hit damage scaling from 30-30 to 15-15, and the same thing on the explosion. So aspect Cupid in terms of just being a damage dealer, which is how a lot of people are running it, is completely dead now, I would imagine. Is one just lost 30% of both kinds of scaling off of it. That's a pretty big deal. And then also Share the Love has now got reduced base damage by 15 at all ranks. So yeah, I think this makes sense. You know, Cupid aspect was one of those where like people were just running it a lot of the time as a damage dealing ADC, which is not really what you want. You know, you want this in more of like a sort of either a bruiser or a supportive direction. Sobek Shift, Aspect of Prey. They have increased the base damage on his one and increased the damage scaling. Probably not going to make a big difference, to be honest. And then for regular Sobek and Aspect Sobek, Sickening Strike, they have decreased the God dot damage from 5 to 7% of HP. It's now 4 to 6%. And Looking in the Waters, they have decreased the base damage from 300 to 900. It's now 300 to 780. See, ultimately, this base damage probably won't matter all that much because the execute threshold isn't changing. But sometimes it might matter. You know, sometimes they might not be in the threshold, and then this is going to do a little bit less damage. So yeah, decent Sobek nerfs overall. Honestly, I would have rather seen a cooldown increase to Pluck. I think that's the main issue, is like Pluck is up so often and it just kills you in Smite 2 if you get hit by it, because beads are like so much less available. I feel like such an instant kill button should probably be on a longer cooldown than it is. I can't remember what it's on, or 14 or 16. It could easily be 18, man. Like that ability is just so powerful. But then they could have left Aspect Sobek's one on the same cooldown, I think, because obviously Aspect Sobek is terrible. In terms of the aspect for Sobek in general, I just don't think it particularly works at the moment. I think they would need to do more changes than just the one change to make it actually viable and worth playing over regular Sobek. Moving on though, your Moja's getting a buff, which is interesting. They have increased the inner hit damage scaling of Moonstrike by 10% and Mending Waters the subsequent bounce damage from 50% to 65%. This is specifically on Aspect Umoja. I missed that. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Aspect Umoja, after the nerf to this, it was incredibly powerful for a while, but going from 100% bounce damage to 50% was an absolutely enormous nerf, so they're just bringing it back up a little bit. It seems like it's probably been underperforming. Hercules, Mitigate Wounds, they have increased the protections from 5 to 25 plus 15%. It's now 10 to 30 plus 20%. So 5 more at all ranks and also 5% more of your protections from items. And then Excavate, they have increased the bonus damage from 280 to 760, 320 to 760 now, so a bit more in the early game, but nothing else at max rank. So just some small Hercules buffs there. I think that kind of makes sense. He has fallen out of the meta pretty substantially over the last like couple of weeks, couple of months, especially with this change where they massively nerfed the base protections on it. And her getting a buff, they have increased the damage scaling on Impale and also decreased the cooldown and base damage a little bit on Disperse as well. Just some very small and her buffs, which I think is fine. Dancerboro buff as well. They have increased the heal per tick on its jar and the base damage gain from attacking out of the leaf form early as well. So again, some small Dancer buffs I'm fine with. He's not exactly particularly good right now. He's getting some buffs as well. Another ADC that's been mostly underperforming, so it should be fine. They have increased the base damage of Backflip a little bit. The cooldown going from 15 down to 13 is pretty big though. That will help keep her a lot more safe. Because if Neith doesn't have Backflip, she is very much a sitting duck. You know, she doesn't have any kind of safety from her ultimate that some other ADCs do, like, you know, having CC immunity on it, or like Artemis or being able to stun people off of you and stuff like that. And finally, Agni's Aspect will be releasing April 28th, 1 week into the patch cycle. This is generally what they're doing with the aspects now. You know, the patch will launch on a Monday, and then the Monday after we'll have a new aspect. Agni's is going to be launching. And this one, we've talked about it already from the Monday show on Titan Talk, but your basic attacks now ignite enemies, dealing damage over time, stacking up to 5 times. Flame Wave and Rainfire will consume the ignites and deal a big burst of damage, but Rate of Fire deals reduced damage with the aspect on. Moving into item balance though, we probably have seen a lot of this, so honestly I'm not sure I'm going to go over it in too much detail. Basically, we've already covered this. I've covered the full notes if you want to check it out. I'll link the video down below. It's not worth going over this in too much detail. The general idea, maybe we'll check out the new items. The general idea with all of these balance changes is that they're just trying to like specialize a bunch of the items in the game. So they're trying to make them, you know, more suited to a specific purpose. Like they're really powerful in this specific scenario to counter this thing or with this specific god, rather than just like every item in the game just being generically good in any build. But yeah, full video link down below with more details. But the new items are going to be a tier thing, which is 50 strength, 10% attack speed, and your basic attacks deal 15 bonus physical damage. Hitting a god with a basic attack increases the damage by 15, stacking 1 time plus 1 per 4 levels. So ultimately at the end of this, you will be getting 6 stacks of this, which is going to be a pretty substantial amount of damage, 90 extra damage on all of your basics. And this is going to be a sort of more flat damage version because kin size is getting changed to be significantly more max health focused. Rage is going to be added as well. Strength and crit chance, more crit chance whenever you get a kill or assist, and it will evolve getting 10% extra 4 stacks. So a total of 50% crit chance on Rage. So, you know, even with just a Rage and a Deathbringer, you're going to be sitting at like probably about 75% crit chance, which is pretty crazy. Ancient Signet is the final new item, and this is kind of, I guess, similar to Tier Thing in terms of just giving bonus damage to your abilities this time instead of auto attack. So it's got intelligence and max mana. Enemy gods hit by your abilities take 20 plus 10 per level bonus magical damage on a 20-second cooldown, and the cooldown is reduced by 2 seconds for every minion kill or assist. But yeah, we won't go over these changes. As I said, I've got a video link down below, but there are some additional post-PTS changes that they've got here that weren't talked about on Monday's show. They've, you know, taken some feedback from the playtesting and stuff like that, and they're making some additional changes. So Executioner, Tome of Death, and Demonic Grip are all getting the same change, where they are now protection reduction. So instead of giving you the piercing effect and giving you increased pen when you land these hits, it's going to apply piercing to the enemy instead and reduce their protections. The number hasn't changed. It's still 6% per stack, 24% at max. But yeah, these are now going to apply protection reduction like they did in Smite 1. So there's a little change there. They've done some like tier 1 and tier 2 changes, probably mostly because they didn't get stat squished in the OB7 update. A lot of the tier 3 items got stat squished and a lot of the tier 1 and tier 2s didn't, which, you know, could lead to some weird like negative externalities, I guess, where like, you know, some tier 2s are worth keeping and not upgrading because they're so stat efficient, or like some tier 2s might have more than their tier 3s and stuff like that. So that's what all of those changes are, I assume. And Shielded, they have decreased the magical protection a bit. Berserker Shields, also some decreased magical protection. Breastplate, 5 less physical protection. Eye of Providence, 5 less of each. These are probably just like updates that kind of need a bit more of a stat squish by the looks of this. So 5 off of Eye of the Storm, 5 off of Genji's Guard, 5 off of Glad Shield, but they've increased their health a little bit. 5 of each off of Pridwin, Helm of Darkness, 5 more intelligence, 5 less physical protection, and 5 less magical protection as well. Helm of Radiance, 5 less physical. Hide Nemean Lion, 5 less physical. Hussar's Wings, 10 less physical, but a little bit more health. Leviathan's Hide, 10 less physical, but a little bit more health. Magi's Cloak, 5 off of each. Mantle of Discord, 10 less magical. Mystical Mail, 5 less physical. Only Hunters, 5 less magical. Pharaoh's Curse, 5 less of each. Phoenix Feather, 50 more health, but 15 less magical protection on that. Prophetic Cloak, 3 less of each. Ruinous Ankh, 10 less physical protection. Screeching Gargoyle, 10 less magical. Shield of the Phoenix, 25 more health, but 5 less physical. Shield Splitter, 5 more strength, but 5 less of each, and also decrease the per level scaling on the damage from 10 to 5, which is pretty substantial. Nerf, this item has been very popular. Shifted Shield, 5 less of each, but 50 more health. Shogun's Kasari, 5 less magical. Spectral Armor, 10 less physical. Sphere of Negation, 15 less magical. Spirit Robe, 5 less of each. Stampede, 50 more health, but 10 less physical. Stone of Binding, 5 less physical. Talisman of Purification, 75 health, but 10 less magical. Void Shield, 5 more strength, 50 more health, but 10 less physical. And Void Stone, 50 more health, but 10 less magical. So yeah, there you go. These changes are mostly, you know, just a continuation of the stat squish by the looks of this. But that's pretty much it for the patch notes. There's some bug fixes down at the bottom, but I won't bother going over those. They always do some important bug fixes. We appreciate them, but I can't bother going over them in full detail. But yeah, that's the patch notes. Some additional stuff like God Balance, VXG emotes, all that good stuff. And of course, some more details on like specifics about stuff that we already saw on Monday. But yeah, it seems like it's going to be a really good patch, man. You know, God Builder on itself, you know, if there was nothing else in this patch and there was only God Builder, it'd still be a pretty good patch, because I know a lot of people are waiting for that. It's going to be very good for new players and intermediate players. But yeah, we got Kali as well. We got a bunch of new skins, a bunch of stuff coming in this update. It seems like it's going to be a really good one. But let me know your own thoughts down below on these patch notes, and I will catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.